More than 1,000 students in 22 schools nationwide have been affected by a massive outbreak of food poisoning.
It is more of a crisis than most Americans can even begin to realize.
I went to bite into the apples and there was a cockroach and I almost threw up. It was really nasty.
50 pesticides in school lunches. It's not okay.
Imagine sitting in a school cafeteria, ready to eat lunch, only to discover that the food on your tray is far from what you thought it was. What if I told you that what's being served in schools across America might be harming kids more than you think? In this video, we're diving deep into the hidden truth behind school lunches, from the rise of processed meals to the efforts of a few schools trying to fight back. What's at stake? Our children's health and their future. Stay with us as we uncover what's really going on behind the lunchroom doors. This might change the way you think about what's on your plate. Chapter 1. The Bitter Truth. What's really on their plates?
When I go down there and we're serving it, I know that I don't want to eat it and that I don't think it's healthy, but yet I'm serving it to 600 kids.
50% of children between the ages of 2 and 15 have fatty streaks in their arteries, and this is literally the beginning stages of heart disease.
And if they're eating junk food in schools, then the schools are telling them that that's okay, it's appropriate, it's what happens in schools. That's not right.
When we've had officials in the Department of Education and the Office of School Food tell us that they have to keep their numbers up for the lunches, that they're in the business.
The world has been deceived, fed lies disguised as convenience. As you sit down for a meal today, think about what's on your plate. The perfectly plump chicken breasts, the vibrant vegetables, the glistening fruits. They're all so carefully curated, aren't they? But beneath that glossy facade lies something far more sinister. In the quiet hum of industrial farms, millions of animals are not living, but suffering. The pristine packages of meat we pick up at the store don't tell the full story. They're wrapped in layers of falsehood. Each bite comes with a price, and it's not just financial. The cost of mass production is the invisible cruelty we never see. The truth is buried under layers of marketing and government regulations designed to make us believe everything is safe, natural, and humane. But take a moment and ask yourself, what happens behind the closed doors of these mega farms? What does free range really mean when the birds are crammed into spaces so small they can hardly move? What's in the chemicals pumped into fruits to make them ripen unnaturally fast? It's not just the animals suffering, the environment bears the burden too. The fields of monoculture crops, stripped of diversity, are an environmental disaster waiting to unfold. Soil erosion, pesticide runoff, and the depletion of natural resources. They're all results of a system that prioritizes profit over sustainability. The most horrifying part? These industries don't want you to know. They want you to trust the labels, the certifications, the smooth advertisements. They want you to keep eating and buying without questioning. But this system is a ticking time bomb, and the real victims are far too many to ignore. So next time you pick up that package of meat, that brightly colored apple, or that frozen dinner, ask yourself, what's really on your plate? The answer might just be the most disturbing thing you've ever tasted. The bitterness isn't in the food. It's in the truth you've been avoiding all along. Chapter 2. From Farm to Factory, the Processed Takeover. We've all been there, strolling through the supermarket, grabbing that bag of chips or a box of cereal. You know, the ones with the flashy colors and promises of extra protein or 100% organic. It's easy to forget that these foods didn't come from some lush farm, bathed in sunlight and kissed by the earth. Oh no, they came from a factory, a shiny metallic maze of machinery where real food is transformed into something unrecognizable and sometimes unpronounceable. So what happened? How did we go from the bountiful harvests of farm-fresh produce to a world drowning in processed junk? Let's rewind the clock to the early 1900s, when the world was still buzzing with the promise of the Industrial Revolution. People were excited about progress. More food, more efficiency, less labor. The machines were supposed to set us free, right? But here's the twist. They didn't just free us from farm work. They freed us from real food. In the beginning, it was all about convenience. Canned beans, instant coffee, quick fixes for busy people. But somewhere along the way, that convenience morphed into a full-blown takeover. The factories didn't stop with just one product. They started producing more and more, packing our shelves with things like artificially flavored fruit snacks, frozen dinners, and sugary breakfast bars. Take a good look at your cereal box next time. That healthy breakfast is probably more sugar than grain, dressed up in the guise of something wholesome. And let's not forget about those light yogurts. Low fat, high sugar, the ultimate trickery. It's all part of a scheme that has been playing out for decades. But here's where it gets really unsettling. These processed foods didn't just replace real meals. They rewired our brains. Addictive additives were introduced. Sugar, MSG, artificial flavors, all designed to hook us. Have you ever found yourself reaching for another bag of chips, even though you know you've had enough? Yeah, it's not just your willpower at fault. You're being played. Now, you might think, so what? It's just food, right? Well, consider this. By the time you hit 30, the average person has consumed thousands of pounds of processed food. That's years of preservatives, synthetic chemicals, and flavor enhancers slowly building up in your system. The result? An increase in chronic illnesses, obesity, and a culture that thinks eating means opening a box, not cooking a meal. This wasn't an accident, though. It wasn't just a shift in eating habits. It was a carefully orchestrated change. You see, food companies found a goldmine in processed foods, cheap ingredients, long shelf lives, and a steady stream of customers. Why bother with the hassle of growing real food when you can manufacture it in a factory? The irony? We're paying a premium for things that are less real than ever. How many times have you heard someone say, "I'll just grab something quick from the store"? But quick doesn't mean better. It often means worse. It's not just about food. It's about control. A handful of corporations now dominate the food supply, shaping what's on our plates. And every time you bite into something processed, you are feeding into that system. It's a cycle of convenience, addiction, and, ultimately, reliance. But don't worry, this isn't the end. Stay tuned as we dive deeper into how this processed food empire is making us sick, physically and mentally, and what it means for our future. Chapter 3. Beyond the Tray. Unmasking the school food machine. Have you ever looked at your school lunch tray and thought, what exactly am I eating here? It's a question that crosses the minds of many students every day, but few ask it out loud. Sure, it's easy to laugh off that mystery meat or the sad, limp salad, but behind every tray is a complex and often disturbing system at work. Let's start with the basics. Where does all this food come from? Well, you'd think it's sourced from local farms. Fresh veggies, maybe some wholesome proteins. But in reality, a massive industry is at play. Ever heard of the school food system? Probably not, but you should. This system is run by a few corporate giants who control what your school gets. They provide everything, from the over-processed frozen meals to the soggy, tasteless carrots that you pretend to eat so you can get to the chocolate milk. Sounds innocent enough, right? Just a convenient way to feed thousands of students. Well, let's dig deeper. There's one big reason this food is so cheap. It's mass-produced, heavily subsidized by the government, and designed to be as low cost as possible. Enter the world of food manufacturers who churn out millions of meals with questionable nutritional value, all for the sake of profit. The goal isn't to nourish, it's to feed, and feed fast. As long as a meal meets the minimum USDA guidelines, it's approved. And those guidelines, they might not be as wholesome as you think. For instance, schools are often required to offer whole grain options. But let's be honest, whole grain could mean wheat flour with just a hint of fiber. Not quite the nutritional powerhouse you were hoping for, is it? These meals are more about appearance than real health benefits, leaving students to wonder whether they're consuming food or just a bunch of fillers that barely scrape by in the health department. Let's talk about those chicken nuggets everyone loves to complain about. Those golden, crispy bites are often so processed, they don't even resemble actual chicken anymore. They're packed with preservatives, fillers, and enough sodium to send your blood pressure through the roof. But hey, they meet the requirements, right? That's what matters to the people writing the checks. But hold on, this story isn't just about bad food. It's about the forces behind it. The government, big corporations, and even schools themselves have a vested interest in keeping things the way they are. Why? Because the food industry is a cash cow. Local school districts often rely on state and federal funding to keep their meal programs afloat, and these funds are tied to the amount of food served, not necessarily the quality. Take, for example, the massive push for schools to serve packaged meals rather than fresh ones. It's cheaper, easier to store, and easier to distribute. But here's the kicker. The more processed the meal, the less money schools have to spend on actual fresh ingredients. The system encourages schools to stick with what's easy, prepackaged, ready-to-serve meals, and in doing so, it locks them into a cycle that keeps kids eating the same bland, nutrient-deficient meals every day. Now, you might think, okay, but why don't we just change things? Demand better food. That sounds easy, right? But change isn't so simple. You see, behind the curtain of your cafeteria, there's a web of lobbyists, food manufacturers, and lawmakers who benefit from the status quo. They push policies that keep the money flowing and the students fed, with food that barely passes for nutrition. But it's not all doom and gloom. There are efforts underway to shake up the system. Some schools are beginning to source locally, pushing back against the corporate food giants. Some are even ditching the mystery meat in favor of more sustainable, healthier options. And guess what? Students are actually noticing the difference. They're demanding better food, and some schools are listening. So next time you pick up that tray, take a closer look. The food on your plate isn't just a meal. It's part of a system that has been designed to prioritize convenience and profit over your health. But it doesn't have to stay that way. As more students, parents, and activists speak out, the food system could change, and maybe, just maybe, school lunch will finally start to taste as good as it looks on the menu. But until then, enjoy that mystery meat. Or maybe don't. Chapter 4. Fresh Fight Back. Can real food win? It's been a long battle. The war between processed food giants and real wholesome food is a tale as old as time. Or at least as old as the first factory-made snack. It feels like every time we take a step forward toward healthier eating, we're pushed back by a new fast food ad or a brilliantly marketed snack, promising a guilt-free experience, just like the cookie you devoured last night, right? But here's the thing, the fight isn't over. In fact, it's just heating up. Picture this. You're at the grocery store, walking down the aisles, the fluorescent lights flickering above. On one side, you've got rows of brightly colored boxes, chips, cookies, frozen dinners, each one boasting some new scientific health benefit. And on the other, a modest display of organic vegetables, fruits, and fresh meats, quiet, unassuming, and often more expensive than that bag of chips that promises to help you stay lean. Sound familiar? But here's the catch. Real food is fighting back. The trend towards plant-based diets, local farming, and sustainable agriculture is gaining momentum. People are starting to question, do I really want to eat a burger that looks like it could survive a nuclear apocalypse? Or would I rather bite into something that's been grown in the soil, without 1,000 chemicals? It's not an easy fight. Real food has always been at a disadvantage. Big food has the power of big marketing, deep pockets, and clever lab work that turns corn syrup into an addictive, sweet concoction. They've made us believe that convenience is the ultimate luxury. And let's be honest, who doesn't love the 3-minute microwavable meal at the end of a long day? But here's where it gets interesting. Real food isn't going down without a fight. Enter the rise of food revolutions. Ever heard of the slow food movement? The idea is simple. Slow down, eat better, and focus on quality over convenience. It's a mindset shift, and it's spreading. Local food markets, farmers markets, and even backyard gardens are pushing back against industrial farming and mass production. And suddenly, eating fresh doesn't seem so impossible. It's a choice, and more people are choosing to make it. The food industry may have an arsenal of chemicals and preservatives, but real food has something they can't compete with: authenticity. You can't fake the flavor of a freshly picked tomato or the satisfying crunch of a freshly baked loaf of bread. There's no secret ingredient that can replace the power of nature. And for many, that's exactly why real food is making a comeback. But here's the question. Can real food really win this war? It's a tough call. We live in a world where time is money, and the convenience of grabbing something off the shelf for dinner is, frankly, too tempting. Big Food's influence is still strong, and they're not going down without a fight. But as awareness grows and more people make small changes, whether it's choosing a healthier snack or growing their own veggies, it becomes clear that real food has the potential to win, not in one big swoop, but in small, steady victories. Because the truth is, real food isn't just about what's on your plate. It's about reclaiming control over your health, your choices, and your future. And that's something Big Food can't sell in a shiny package. The battle rages on, but with every bite of an apple, every forkful of homemade soup, and every step toward a more mindful way of eating, the odds just keep getting better for real food. So what's it going to be? A lifetime of processed convenience, or a fresh fight for what's real? Chapter 5. Our Kids, Our Choice. Demanding a healthy future for school meals. There's a reason we call them the future, our kids. But here's the kicker. How can they build that future if they're fueled on processed, sugary junk food? We send them to school every day, trusting that the meals they're served will fuel their brains and bodies, right? But what if I told you that what's on their plates is more about convenience and profit than it is about nutrition? Think about it. A school lunch isn't just a meal. It's a daily decision about what our kids are putting into their bodies, shaping their health, their energy levels, and their future. And right now, that choice is often limited to foods that are as far from healthy as you can get. Mystery meat, fried everything, and snacks with more sugar than a birthday party. Ever wonder why kids can barely sit still in class after lunch? Or why so many of them are struggling with obesity, diabetes, and even heart disease before they hit their teenage years? But this isn't just a them problem. This is our problem. The fact that we've accepted this system for so long is a reflection of a larger issue. We've let profit-driven corporations dictate the health of our children. Food companies and their pals in the government have made sure that the cheapest, easiest options are served up, whether they're good for our kids or not. These meals often look like a quick fix, but they come with long-term consequences that cost more in the long run, both in healthcare and in lost potential. And here's the kicker. We can do something about it. As parents, educators, and citizens, we have the power to demand better. Now, we don't have to stand by and accept mediocrity as the norm. From school board meetings to petitions, it's time to make our voices heard and demand that our kids have access to meals that truly nourish them. We have the right to push for fresh fruits and vegetables, whole grains, and meals that actually fuel learning and growth, not just appease hunger for a few hours. Imagine your child sitting down to a colorful plate of fresh veggies, lean proteins, and whole foods that make them feel energized and ready to conquer the day, instead of sluggish and distracted. That could be the reality if we choose to fight for it. It's not about blaming anyone. It's about taking a stand for the future we want for our kids. The time for just complaining is over. It's time to demand change. Change that prioritizes the health of the next generation. Because let's face it, when kids eat better, they do better. And when we start making healthier choices for our kids today, we are investing in the health of tomorrow. The question is, are we ready to make that choice? Will we continue to let corporations dictate the food that fuels our children's future? Or will we rise up and demand a healthier, brighter path for them? Our kids deserve better. Let's give them the future they've earned. This isn't just about food. It's about the future we're shaping.